Looks like we're going live. Let me just check out over. Yep, we're live on X. And can you see if we're live on Instagram?
We're live on Instagram. We'll take a let's see.
Hello, everybody. Please stand by while we just make sure that we're good to go.
I don't think we're live on Instagram.
We are live on YouTube.
Yeah, I'll figure out Instagram. We could probably start.
Hi, everybody. By the way, Rami, I can't see in this layout. I can't see the chat.
Yes, you need to click on comments.
I need to click comments. There we go.
Okay, no, we're not live on Instagram. It's going to take me a bit of some time to figure out.
Lishiaman 8952. Wonderful to see you too. Thank you for joining us today. We'll just give Rami a minute. Alexander Karayanis from Athens. Great to have you with us today. Thank you for joining us.
We can't go live on Instagram unless we restart the stream, Dimitri, so I think it's best to skip it.
Okay, let's get going then. So, where are you today, Rami?
I'm in Cali. It's a large city here. Well, I don't know if it's a large city. It's relatively small compared to Bogota, but it's it's the capital of Salsa of Colombia.
Right.
One of our viewers, I think like 2 weeks ago in one of our live streams, mentioned that I should visit the Feria de Cali, and I did so. I've attended almost 2 days of events, this big parade, and some salsa events around the city. I don't know how to dance, but I'm feeling a bit more rhythm right now.
I would expect nothing less in Colombia. So where else have you been in Colombia so far? You've been all around the country, it seems.
For now, I've been to Bogota and Cali. The place where I'm staying actually has like an open, it's like half indoors, half outdoors. So you might hear a bit of noise throughout the stream, but there's nothing I could do about it. I cannot close it's kind of an open space, so I can't really isolate the noise.
Sounds very realistic. It's kind of cool. So we're to be joined by Johan from Oman. Thank you so much. DMAG884 from Vancouver. Nomad's Nest 1 UK from our friends in England. We have Belo Horizonte Siqueira Kelo 8. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, from Brazil. And a public domain from Fidalgo Island, Washington. Thank you for joining us today. Looks like we have a comrade from Oslo, Norway, Safia, and John Partica from Campbell River, BC. A beautiful place. Thank you.
For our friends in Norway, it would be interesting if anyone could help us get in touch with Mordecai Vanunu. His wife Kristin Joachimsen lives in Oslo and teaches at a university there. And I'm trying to get in touch with either his wife or Mordecai Vanunu. Mordecai Vanunu was the man who leaked Israel's nuclear programs and I think took the first images of Israel's nuclear bombs. And he's currently detained. He's not allowed to leave the country. He's not allowed to speak. No one knows much about who he is, where he is, how he's doing. So I'm trying to find a way to interview him or his wife, Kristen. So the people in Norway.
Yeah, anybody know Mordecai? Let us know. We'd love to talk to him. So he's probably not going to be easily contactable, I would guess. We've now been joined by someone from Alberta who describes the province as fascist. This is Adastra Recordings. Just to be clear, that's not my assessment. That is our audience member's assessment, but I'm not going to dispute it either. I would say the whole country is looking increasingly fascist nowadays. But thank you for joining us, Adastra Recordings. And someone named Claire says it feels like Siberia. Where are you at, Claire? Maybe in Canada, because where I'm at, it feels like Siberia too. We have another friend coming from Oslo, Fardeen, and Wendy from San Diego. Great to see you. And someone from Scotland, a place I've long wanted to go. Graham Duncan from Dundee. Thank you for joining us today, Graham. So let's get underway. We're going to start by doing a Palestine update. We try to keep it brief, but we want to keep this front and center, the fact that this genocide is continuing. So that's where we're going to start our discussion today. Then we're going to talk about the press conference that as part of that Netanyahu and Trump just did in Florida after meeting. Then we're going to talk about this wild new development, Trump bombing Nigeria for some godforsaken reason. And we're going to conclude with a discussion about just an overview of our on-the-ground reporting in 2025 and what we plan to do in 2026. And I guess the overarching theme of this live stream, which is reflected in the title we chose, is will 2026 be the year of World War III? As we close out 2025, there are escalations happening all over the place, and we're going to get into some of those today. So with that, let's begin with our brief Palestine update. Today is the 816th day of Israel's genocide in occupied Palestine. And in Gaza, the health ministry issued its latest update yesterday, December 29th. Put it up on the screen so that you can see it. And you'll see there that they reported that in the prior 48 hours, one more Palestinian in Gaza had been murdered and 3 more had been wounded. And the cumulative toll from the beginning of the genocide over 816 days is 71,266 dead, 171,222 injured. That is more than 10% of the pre-genocide population of the Gaza Strip has either been killed or wounded. And these numbers, as we all know, are extremely conservative and unquestionably a large undercount of the actual death toll, because these numbers only encompass people who came to seek treatment or who were delivered, their bodies were delivered to the morgues and hospitals of Gaza. So since the ceasefire on October 11th, 414 people Israel has killed and have wounded 1,145. 680 bodies have been retrieved from the rubble in that period. And the ministry says that the death of a citizen due to a building collapse, raising the number of victims who arrived at hospitals. There was a low pressure system going through the area with a lot of rain, harsh winds, which in and of itself has posed a deadly challenge to especially the young people of Gaza. You'll see at the bottom of this update, it says the death of the child Atakan Firas Musleh, 2 months old due to severe cold, raises the number of deaths due to cold and the low pressure system to 3 cases. So the pace at which Israel is killing Palestinians since this so-called ceasefire went into effect has remained more or less constant. It averages out to about 5 killed per day and nearly 15 wounded per day. So there is no rational way to characterize this as a ceasefire. So that is where things currently stand in terms of the death toll and the number of people being wounded in Gaza. Now, Trump and Netanyahu, as I mentioned at the outset, just met in Florida yet again. As a backdrop to that, they were asked, and we're going to show you in a moment, Trump was asked about Israel's ceasefire violations. But before we do that, I want to show you exactly what the tally is for the ceasefire violations, and then we'll show you his answer. The government media office in Gaza released a critical report marking 80 days since the ceasefire took effect on October 10th. Israel has committed 969 systematic violations, resulting in 418 killed and 1,141 injured. The violations include 298 direct fire incidents against civilians, 54 military incursions into residential areas, and 455 attacks on homes and unarmed citizens. The Zionist entity continues to weaponize the humanitarian aid. Only 19,764 trucks out of the agreed 48,000 have entered Gaza 42% of the commitment. Only 425 fuel trucks out of 4,000, a little more than 10% of the commitment. Continued closure of crossings and the ban on shelter materials, tents, and caravans has left 1.5 million displaced people exposed to the winter elements. So you'll see there that, of course, Israel is, as has been its practice historically, is violating the ceasefire agreement 6 ways from Sunday. So, of course, Netanyahu traveled to Mar-a-Lago for yet another meeting with the Donald. As you can see here from a post by Ali Abunimah, our friend at Electronic Intifada, the war criminal flew over Greece, Italy, and France on the way to meet his fellow war criminal in Florida. And because all 3 of these countries, Greece, Italy, and France, are signatories to the Rome Statute, the founding statute of the ICC, they had an obligation to intercept that plane and arrest Netanyahu, force it to land, and turn him over to The Hague for prosecution. Of course, they didn't do that. And I have no doubt that they told Netanyahu in advance that he was free to fly through their airspace. Otherwise, I doubt very much that he would have done it. So they are yet again flaunting their complicity, these Western leaders, in Israel's crimes. So let's go then to the press conference. We're going to show you a clip from this press conference that covers, I think, 3 or 4 different subjects, and we'll pause to comment on each of the subjects. So let's have a look at what the 2 war criminals had to say.
If you and the Prime Minister talked about having Israel pull back its troops before Hamas fully disarms, I know that's been an issue. Did you push for that today?
Well, we talked about Hamas and we talked about disarmament, and they're going to be given a very short period of time to disarm, and we'll see how that works out. Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner will be in charge of that from our side, but if they don't disarm, as they agreed to do, they agreed to it, and then they'll be held to pay for that.
That's a lie. That is a bald-faced lie. The ceasefire agreement that Hamas signed says nothing about disarmament, simply nothing. And not only that, but the whole time they were negotiating that agreement, and consistently over and over again since it went into effect, the leadership of all the resistance groups, not just Hamas, said, we're not disarming, period. And we will disarm only when we have a state, a Palestinian state, and at that point we will turn over our weapons to the government of Palestine. But until then, we're not disarming. So this is just a flagrant lie, and Trump is setting up the public for a resumption of the full-blown genocide instead of this sort of genocide light that we've been witnessing since this agreement was signed. So don't believe any of this, folks. There was never any commitment made by the resistance to disarm, and in fact, they emphatically denied that was their intention. So let's see what else he had to say.
And we don't want that. We're not looking for that. But they have to disarm within a fairly short period of time.
With Israel withdrawing its forces?
Well, that's a separate subject. We'll talk about that.
Mr. President,
Yes.
Mr. President, do you have a message for the Prime Minister about the West Bank? And are you at all concerned that settler violence, Israeli settler violence, could be undermining the peace plan?
Well, we have had a discussion, big discussion, for a long time on the West Bank, and I wouldn't say we agree on the West Bank 100%, but we will come to a conclusion on the West Bank.
I know everybody knows, anybody who's paying attention, that every single day Israeli settlers and military forces are killing and maiming Palestinian civilians, driving them off their land, stealing their resources, crushing their economy, what remains of it in the occupied West Bank, expanding settler outposts, quote unquote, legalizing them, even though Israel has no authority to legalize them under international law. They're illegal. That's the end of it. All of these various crimes and repeated statements by the leaders of the Zionist entity that they have no intention of allowing the Palestinians to have a state, And yet Trump can't utter a peep of criticism. You just listen to what he had to say. He refused to utter a peep of criticism about what Israeli settlers and the Israeli military are doing to Palestinians in the West Bank.
I could ask, what is the disagreement?
Well, I don't want to do that. It'll be announced at an appropriate time. But he will do the right thing. I know that. I know him very well. He will do the right thing.
Oh, yeah. Netanyahu, we know beyond a shadow of a doubt he's going to do the right thing, because that's exactly what he's been doing his entire career, isn't it?
Yes.
There is a growing fear of a confrontation between Israel and Turkey. How are you going to ease this tension, given the fact that President Erdogan calls Mr. Netanyahu Hitler and compares Israel to the Nazis?
Well,
now, that's my favorite question of the whole press conference. At least one reporter in that entire gaggle of reporters had the temerity to ask a really tough question. So if you didn't hear it, I'll repeat. The reporter says, how are you going to deal with Erdogan, since he described Netanyahu as Hitler and compared Israel to the Nazis? And here's what Trump said.
I know President Erdogan very well, and as you all know, he's a very good friend of mine.
And by the way, just watch Netanyahu's face as Trump delivers this answer.
And I believe that, and I do respect him, and Bibi respects him, and they're not going to have a problem. They're not going to have a problem. I know him very well. And you've seen me do things with President Erdogan and Turkey that nobody else could have done. We're not going to have a problem. He's done a fantastic job. I'm with him all the way. I'm with Bibi all the way. Nothing's going to happen. Yes.
Mr. President, are you concerned that Israel is not moving quickly enough to phase 2 of the peace plan?
Well, I'm not concerned about anything that Israel's doing. I'm concerned about what other people are doing or maybe aren't doing. But I'm not concerned. They've lived up to the plan. They're strong. They're solid. And sometimes they don't understand when somebody violates something that you want to give them a second chance. Well, we'll give them a couple of second chances. But no, Israel's lived up to the plan 100%.
Now, we just read to you the figures, what Israel has done during this this so-called ceasefire. Even if Israel had done only a quarter of what has been documented, how could anybody with the slightest commitment to truth say that Israel has lived up to the ceasefire agreement 100%? 100%.
Dimitri, I think this is a little Freudian slip here, because he hasn't said Israel is agreeing to the ceasefire. He says Israel is committing to the plan. So
Right.
there's clearly a plan that he's referring to. Also, something I found super silly is that he says, I know Erdogan, I know what he's up to. Yet we hear a lot of people defending Erdogan, saying that he has some mastermind plan to liberate Palestine or whatsoever. And Trump is blatantly saying in our faces that Erdogan is nothing more than hot air working on behalf, in cahoots with Israel, with the United States, and he's part of, of whatever plan Trump has.
Yeah, that was quite telling. Let's listen to the last part of this spectacle.
Don't forget, we made the plan possible by taking out Iran. And speaking of Iran, I hope they're not trying to build up again, because if they are, we're going to have no choice but very quickly to eradicate that buildup. So I hope Iran is not trying to build up, as I've been reading that they're building up weapons and other things. And if they are, they're not using the sites that we obliterated, but they're using possibly different sites. We know exactly where they're going, what they're doing, and I hope they're not doing it, because we don't want to waste the fuel on a B-2. It's a 37-hour trip both ways. I don't want to waste a lot of fuel.
Yeah, what concerns him is not all the people who are going to die if the war with Iran resumes. What concerns him is the fuel that will be wasted for American bombers to travel this long distance from the United States to the Islamic Republic. By the way, since we're on the subject of Iran, retired Brigadier General, I think he's a Brigadier General, Itzhak Brik, just authored an op-ed which was published by Haaretz, in which he said that if there is a resumption of the war with Iran, and if Iran decides to focus its firepower on the part of Israel that contains 70 or 80% of its population, a very little space, it's kind of like a triangle between Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, and Haifa, that it's entirely possible that Israel will be destroyed and that it will never recover. That's coming from a retired Brigadier General Itzhak Vik. One other thing I want to say about this press conference, I watched the whole thing. That's just a few minutes of it. It's like 26 minutes long. And there was not a single question about the Epstein files. No one said to, Netanyahu standing right there beside Trump, it's a perfect opportunity to ask him, could you please explain why former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak was meeting dozens of times with Jeffrey Epstein, which has been revealed by these files? Could you please explain why Ehud Barak's right-hand man spent extended periods of time, several occasions, at Jeffrey Epstein's mansion in Manhattan? None of that was asked. And frankly, I think that it's absolutely inevitable that was at least one of the subjects that Trump and Netanyahu discussed during this most recent meeting, because of the implications of this for the national security of the United States, and especially for Israel's national security. If people understand or come to the conclusion that Israel was basically in cahoots with Jeffrey Epstein and was running a sex trafficking ring with 1,200 minor, teenage girls in order to acquire compromat on powerful politicians, I mean, that's probably going to be the end of, Americans' willingness to support the genocidal entity. Certainly a lot of people will turn on Israel, and they already are turning on Israel. So, it boggles the mind that nobody would ask these most obvious and pressing questions about Netanyahu's or Israel's relationship with Epstein when they're sitting right there. But anyways, that's the nature of the corporate media nowadays. Rami, any thoughts about that press conference?
I think what stands out the most is that the United States, Trump, are entirely absolving Israel of any form of violations that happened since the ceasefire agreement came out. And saying that he entirely trusts Netanyahu means that he's acknowledging that Netanyahu didn't do anything wrong over the last 3 years or even before that. He still sees Netanyahu as a peaceful partner. He sees him as, actually, he's putting the blame on the Palestinians for not committing to the ceasefire agreement, although I really haven't heard of any ceasefire violations that the Palestinians in Gaza have committed. But alternatively, I had another thought. It would have been interesting because Hamas has called on an open investigation on every activity that happened on October 7th by an independent body, whether it is the ICC, ICJ, the Red Cross. I think this would have been an amazing opportunity as well to ask that question. Is Israel willing to heed the call of Hamas for an independent investigation into the reality of what happened on October 7th? Hamas is saying clearly that they followed international law throughout this entire operation. And they're basically putting the blame on Israel for the death of civilians through this Hannibal directive. This would have been an amazing question to ask as well, beyond the Epstein question that you mentioned.
Yeah, absolutely. So in related news, Israel today was hit by massive disruptions to its communication system. This is might be happening right now. I don't know if they've resolved it yet, but this morning, the press reported that there were network outages across Israel. As you can see, an article in the Zionist media outlet JFeed here, they are raising the question about whether it was a cyber attack. And so just so you know how bad this is, JFeed reported that a broad communications disruption struck Israel on Tuesday afternoon, knocking out internet and cellular services across multiple providers. So this was not one company having a problem. This was multiple providers and briefly affecting critical digital infrastructure nationwide. Technical sources said the outage simultaneously impacted Hot Mobile, Cellcom, and Partner, along with additional services that do not rely on a single network provider. The scope of the disruption led infrastructure officials to conclude it was not a localized malfunction, but a large-scale event affecting core systems. According to preliminary assessments, the failure appears to have originated at the DNS level with suspected problems involving a Cisco forwarder used to route traffic. And sounds like a pretty nasty telecommunications problem they're suffering today in the genocidal entity. And on a similar note, the Iranian hacker group Handala has struck the genocidal regime yet again. And you might have missed this news because typically the media is doing everything possible, the corporate media, to ignore it. But up here on the screen, we put a post from the X account of Handala. And by the way, they only have about 6,000 followers. They're almost certainly being suppressed by X. So I encourage you to subscribe if you're active on X to Handala's account. They come out with some amazing revelations. This one, posted a few days ago, says it's addressed to Netanyahu's inner circle, and they call it the BB-Gate operation. To every official still clutching the illusion of secrecy, you feel it now, the tightening chest, the cold sweat, the gnawing dread. That's not just fear, it's the knowledge that every layer of your security, every secret entrusted to Tsahi Braverman, I think that's Braverman, Netanyahu's chief of staff, gatekeeper, and vault of all forbidden truths is now wide open. Braverman's iPhone 16 Pro Max is hacked. Not just now, Handala has been watching, infiltrating, and listening for years. The silent guardian you trusted, the one orchestrating Bibi's world, deciding who gets in and who disappears, collecting every dirty secret, has become your greatest vulnerability. The vault you depended on is now ours, and on and on. And they published videos which apparently were on the iPhone of Braverman, and they're vowing to disclose a lot of dirty secrets in the days ahead. It's interesting, Rami, isn't it, that this country, which purports to be, technologically superior to everybody, is, repeatedly shown vulnerabilities, one of which is having a drastic effect on telecommunications in the country today. So perhaps they're not quite as adept technologically as we're led to believe.
I mean, Iran is serving Israel its own medicine, right? You look into the terrorist attacks that Israel committed in Lebanon through this Patriot attack that has targeted civilians, massive amounts of collateral damage, and just regular people, part of public service in Lebanon, that were targeted. And that was applauded by Israel and this the whole Western cybersecurity apparatus, right, that are all in cahoots with Israel. Iran is showing that Israel is not, it's this paper tiger. I think that's what Sayyid Hassan used to call Israel, in a sense where they need to surveil the entire world and hack into supply chains to create this sense of fear and insecurity across the entire world, because it knows how fragile they are. And Iran is the only country in the Middle East, along with the Palestine and the Palestinians, that know truly what Israel is made of, and know that whatever they do to us, Iran is serving them that same warning. The last live stream, or 2 live streams ago, I showed a clip of Iran showing the hacking. They put like a message in the car of the chief of nuclear of Israel. Mm-hmm. And that has shown that, well, Iran is showing a lot of restraint. And that restraint might end at some point if Israel doesn't keep crossing every single red line. Mm-hmm. So they're just serving their own medicine. Israel can be targeted anywhere, anyhow, as you've mentioned from this Israeli former brigadier general who clearly demonstrated that Iran could eradicate the population of Israel.
Yeah. Could you unpack that a little bit about this nuclear scientist, the car? What happened there exactly?
I showed a clip 2 weeks ago, right? So basically, the Handala, the same group, published a message, a video, basically threatening the chief of nuclear of Israel, saying, when you open your car door this morning, did it click in a different way? We were able to, tamper around your vehicle. Mm-hmm. They've left a bouquet of roses in the trunk with a message, and they said, well, basically insinuating that we got into your personal space and be careful, right? I mean, if I woke up one day with a bouquet of flowers in my car, no matter who it is, I'd be quite suspicious. How did you get to do that? And that shows that Iran has people on the ground able to, the same way Israel has people in Iran, Iran has people in Israel. And that sense of paranoia that some people might have in Iran, I'm hoping that people in Israel and occupied Palestine also have that sense of paranoia as well. and this war is going to keep escalating. And I think this goes back to our live stream where we spoke about the biggest myths of 2025, that Iran and Israel are there's peace between Iran and Israel, or there's no longer any war. Well, clearly there's massive amounts of Iran is showing that they can target Israel.
Yeah. And by the way, on Christmas Day, Israel claimed that it had killed an operative of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps in a strike carried out in Lebanon in breach of the ceasefire between Israel and Lebanon. So, I think the writing is on the wall here. There is going to be, I think they're trying to provoke Iran into attacking to make it easier to sell to the public another war. But Iran so far is not taking the bait. And if they don't, I think it's inevitable, in the months ahead that we're going to see a resumption of that war, even though a resumption of that war by Israel may well prove to be suicidal. So that's what 2026 has in store for us, I fear. Now, Rami, before we move on to the subject of Nigeria, I invited you to say a few words this morning. We talked about our live stream about Abu Obaida. Could you let us know what news we have on that front?
Yeah. So, yesterday, the Izzeddin Qassam published a 25-minute video, basically mentioning a list of high-ranking martyrs that were assassinated over the last couple of months. There were reports since August that Abu Obaida might have been assassinated, and there were no messages or no acknowledgments from Hamas or Izzeddin al-Qassam until yesterday's video. And
he was the spokesperson of Qassam throughout the genocide, right?
He was the spokesperson of Izzeddin al-Qassam, but to a certain extent, he was a spokesperson of the Palestinian people. And I say this because his messages were just so inspiring and motivating. Always calm and always there's one of his speeches where he talks about if you thought assassinating our leaders would put an end. That was after the death, the martyrdom of Yahya Sinwar. He said, if you think assassinating our leaders would lead to peace, then October 7th would never have happened. And every time you kill our leaders, new leaders are replaced. He also mentioned that soldiers are replaced by 10 other soldiers, and one martyr is replaced by 10,000 other martyrs, and one leader is replaced by more Palestinians that are becoming leaders. I just think that he says that the land of Palestine grows freedom fighters the same way it grows olive trees. So very connecting to our people. This is not a struggle of a Palestinian armed movement against an entity, right? This is the quest for national liberation of a people over our entire land. Always talking about the plight of our people in Gaza, in 1948, in the West Bank, in the refugee camps, as well as in the diaspora, like we are in Canada, or all over the world. What was also interesting is that the leader, Abu Obaida, the spokesperson, was replaced by another comrade named Abu Obaida as well. And that just shows that actually Abu Obaida isn't really someone that you can kill, right? This is a voice of our people. You actually need to, if you want to get rid of Abu Obaida, if you want to get rid of the voice of the Palestinians, you need to assassinate every single one of us, sorry. And this is why I think it's interesting that he kept the name Abu Obaida, because it's a continuity of the same message. Nothing has changed. The only moment our path as Palestinians will change is once Zionism is eradicated from our land and no longer a threat to our people. And I think, there was a lot of analogies throughout his speech that Abu Obaida did, which hints towards the former Abu Obaida, the way he raised his finger, the way he was masked with the red kufiya. I think basically continues that whole symbolism that Abu Obaida is one person, and it's a continuity of a single thought. But I think it's important that we also mentioned that that Izzuddin al-Qassam released the official name of Abu Ubaidah, which is Hudayfa Samir Abdullah al-Kahlut, also known as, I think, Abu Ibrahim. That was his kunya. And he was martyred along with his children. Israel targeted his house, his apartment, where all his family was basically standing together. So I think it's important to acknowledge Abu Ubaidah as a spokesperson for the Palestinian people, but also Abu Ubaidah as an individual who is one among many other martyrs who has a name, and we need to remember that name and the names of all thousands of our martyrs since 1948 and before that are facing the most genocidal entity supported by the entire Western world.
Yeah, you know, you have to marvel at the courage of anybody who would assume this responsibility of being the spokesperson for the resistance in Gaza, because it goes without saying that this person now has a target on his back and will be living with a death sentence hanging over his head every single day that he operates in that role. Extraordinary courage, really, to take on that job. And so with that, let's move on to the subject of Nigeria. Trump began bombing Nigeria apparently on Christmas Day, or he announced it on Christmas Day. And here is his insane post. Tonight, at my direction as Commander-in-Chief, and you'll see this is dated December 25th, the U.S. launched a powerful and deadly strike against ISIS terrorist scum in northwest Nigeria, who have been targeting and viciously killing primarily innocent Christians at levels not seen for many years and even centuries. I have previously warned these terrorists that if they did not stop the slaughtering of Christians, there would be hell to pay, and tonight there was. The Department of War executed numerous perfect strikes, as only the U.S. is capable of doing. Under my leadership, our country will not allow radical Islamic terrorism to prosper. May God bless our military, and Merry Christmas to all, including the dead terrorists, of which there will be many more if their slaughter of Christians continues. I don't know where to begin with this lunacy. The man proclaiming proudly, gleefully, that he's ordered the killing of human beings on Christmas Day. Apparently, he's not aware of the admonition of Jesus of Nazareth to turn the other cheek as a response to violence. Trump thinks that the appropriate response to violence is to be 100 times more violent than those whom you accuse and target. So the big question here, Rami, is why? Why is he doing this? He claims it's to protect Christians. How can anybody take that seriously when he's arming to the teeth Israel that kills or maims Christians in Palestine, Syria, or Lebanon virtually on a daily basis, and has attacked religious houses of worship belonging to the Christian faith, including in Gaza? Ben-Gvir was just the lunatic national security minister of the genocidal entity, just justified the practice of spitting on Christians, which many Zionists living in Israel do. I actually witnessed that myself, by the way. The first time that I went to Israel, I was a young man. I met the Archbishop of the Greek Orthodox Church in Jerusalem at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. And the next day, I was sitting at the entrance to the old city, particular entrance, writing down some notes in a journal of mine, and I heard a big ruckus, and I looked up, and the Archbishop, this is a true story, the Archbishop had an Orthodox Jewish man by the hair and was kicking him in the stomach. And I ran up to him and I said to him, Father, what are you doing? What is this all about? And he said, this man spat on me. And then he said, I know Jesus said to turn the other cheek, but I come from Sparta. That has stayed with me ever since. Anyways, I can, although I don't recommend that you engage in this kind of behavior, I can certainly understand, the frustration amongst Christians living in Jerusalem who have to put up with this kind of indignity. So anyways, nobody would take seriously, nobody thinking rationally in objectively would think that Trump is really motivated by a desire to protect Christians, nor would anybody believe that this is all about ISIS, because after all, Trump just had, a senior ISIS figure, al-Jolani, the new president of Syria, in the White House just a few weeks ago. The United States has never had a problem with ISIS when ISIS was serving its purposes. So that all begs the question, Rami, what do you think is going on here? Why is Trump bombing Nigeria?
Well, as someone mentioned in the comments, in January 2025, Nigeria was admitted not as a full member of BRICS, but as a partner state. That meant that it's basically preparing its path to possibly get closer to Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and the newly added countries. Nigeria is a strategic country as well. Just like Venezuela, it has a huge reserve of natural gas in the surrounding waters. And also, there's a massive movement going on right now in the Sahel region between Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso. There's a confederation of states being built. They've also recently announced the AES, the regroupment of these three countries, that they're wanting to build their own currency and slowly decouple away from, well, they've already started decoupling from the CFA franc. And there's really nothing showing us that this movement is slowing down. And recently we noticed there was a small coup attempt in Benin that touches the ocean. And Nigeria came to the defense of Benin in making sure that this coup doesn't succeed. So ISIS, it's the proxy that allows the United States to have carte blanche in doing whatever it wants. So they started by targeting Boko Haram and these ISIS groups. I think I read reports that actually random, just like regular Nigerians were targeted in these attacks actually, and beyond these ISIS threats. So I personally think that Nigeria is a strategic spot, and that is at a critical stage where it can quickly pivot towards Russia and China before it is quote unquote safe by the United States. So these attacks against ISIS are able to also maybe cement and power the president that is currently in place by reassuring their people that ISIS is an issue. I mean, security is a huge issue in Nigeria, and that he has American support. It's also allowing the United States to basically rinse and repeat their strategy in Ukraine, giving weapons to Ukraine, take the rare earths. Bomb ISIS, takes the natural gas. Bomb ISIS, put a threat to Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, because these countries might become a threat one day to countries that are still under the hands of their former colonial powers. Dimitri, I think you're muted.
Yes, I am. Sorry about that. And then of course, there's just the propaganda value of distracting the American public with another war when Trump is becoming increasingly mired in the Epstein scandal. And that has got a long way to go. By the way, I'm hoping to do a piece tomorrow to update everybody on the last day of the year on recent developments in the Epstein scandal. Before we leave the subject of Nigeria, I just want to show people a bit of interesting news from last year about the Nigerian president, Bola Tinubu. The FBI, the CIA, and the DIA last year blocked access to information relating to the Nigerian president's alleged ties to drug trafficking. That would be drug trafficking to the United States. And there's a lot of informed speculation out there that this man has been involved in major narcotics trafficking for years. And so, again, this just, undermines completely Trump's claim that he's attacking Venezuela because of drugs. And today, apparently, or yesterday, he announced that the United States had struck a dock in Venezuela. So this would be the first land attack, although he was very cagey in terms of what exactly happened there. It wasn't clear whether it was some kind of an operation being conducted by the CIA on Venezuelan soil, or whether it was an airstrike or a drone strike. He was not willing to give details, but he said, yes, we struck a dock because that's where they were loading the drugs. And this is the same president, who just released from prison Juan Orlando Hernandez, the drug kingpin who was president of Honduras, after he was convicted by a court last year in the United States for trafficking in huge quantities of cocaine to the United States. So, and here, as you can see, although this wasn't under Trump, this was under the Biden administration, the U.S. government blocked access to information about alleged drug ties of the Nigerian president. Quite a character. So,
just one last thought here, right? So, the United States changed the title of Secretary of Defense to Secretary of War. This title of this live stream is the year of World War III. The last time the title Secretary of War ended in 1947, right after World War II. We're seeing a front opening in Venezuela, a front possibly opening in Nigeria. Trump said that he was willing to attack Iran again if they were to develop missiles. He says that he has intelligence that is proving that they actually are. So in a sense where these, the United States have been in multiple fronts, of course, since before, but the change of title mixed with the actions that we're seeing, the hawkish actions of Trump in Venezuela and Nigeria, is just confirming us that we might be heading towards a much more confrontational world. Sorry.
Yeah.
So I think it's Nigeria today, but tomorrow it might be. I mean, we're already seeing some developments happening in Somalia and this fictitious states of Somaliland. So I think we should be very wary of Trump's involvement in Nigeria and keep an eye on other fronts that should be opening soon.
Yeah. So just to sum it up, this is the list. This is what we know. Who knows what actually happens? There may have been military operations conducted in multiple countries, covertly, and that we haven't been told about. But this is what we know Trump has done in less than 1 year since he returned to the White House. He has bombed Syria, Yemen, Iraq, Iran, Somalia, Nigeria, and Venezuela. Okay, that's in just 1 year, and that's just what we know. In addition, he has continued to provide massive amounts of weaponry to Ukraine, even though its army is being annihilated, and Russian forces are advancing all over the front line. Trump has armed to the teeth Israel as it attacked this year Lebanon, Syria, Iran, Yemen, Qatar, and of course, Palestine. And on top of all of that, according to the Russian government, the Ukrainians attacked a residence of Vladimir Putin. I believe it was yesterday, and the information around this is explosive. Frankly, what the Russians are saying is that Trump had a call with Putin before he spoke to Zelensky in Mar-a-Lago. I think again this was yesterday, and in that call, Trump said to Putin, I'm going to call you back in a few hours after I finish speaking with Zelensky. And then, according to the Russians, as soon as the meeting with Trump and Zelensky ended, Ukraine launched a massive drone attack on a presidential residence where Vladimir Putin apparently was located at the time. So what the Russians seem to be suggesting is that Trump told Putin to stay there, or gave him a reason to stay wherever he was, because they plan to attack his residence. Whether that's in fact what happened or not, I think it would be foolish of us in the extreme to think that Ukraine would attack the residence of the Russian president, or any residence of the Russian president, without a green light from Trump. Trump claims, when he heard about this, he claims that he was upset and aghast that the Ukrainians had attacked a residence of Vladimir Putin. I don't know why anybody would take that seriously. Zelensky is in every respect dependent upon the United States, not just for his government's survival, but for his own physical survival. How long would he last without the protection of the United States? This corrupt autocrat whose term expired in May of last year and who rules effectively by martial law. So you don't bite the hand that feeds you. And the idea that that man, Zelensky, would order his forces to attack a residence of the Russian president without Trump's approval, I find laughable, completely and utterly laughable. And whatever actually happened here, the Russians are, I think, too intelligent not to at least entertain the possibility that Trump authorized and perhaps even ordered the attack. Perhaps it wasn't simply a question of Trump saying, hey, man, okay, fine, I'll let you do it, but that Trump directed through his own military bigwigs, the Ukrainians, to attack the President Putin's residence. All of the signs are, folks, that we're heading into a massive escalation around the world. We didn't even mention what's going on in Taiwan, where the Trump regime just announced an $11 billion arms sale to Taiwan, which is part of China. Even the US government recognizes that Taiwan is part of China. This is a huge amount of weaponry for that little island to be buying from the United States. And this is the second arms sale under the second Trump administration to Taiwan. So all we can see right across the globe is escalation. Very, very dangerous escalations. And that's why we have titled this live stream 2026, the year of World War III.
Not to mention as well the massive sale of weapons from Turkey towards Kosovo. So when things are going to, if things end up exploding, then there's going to be a lot of grievances around the world that will need to be settled once and for all, especially the question of Kosovo. I don't know. There's many different parts of Europe right now that could spark up.
Indeed. So that's our report on Nigeria and the escalations. We're going to conclude today with a brief overview of what we are on the ground reporting in 2025 and what we plan to do in the months ahead. I myself started the year off in terms of on the ground reporting by going to Lebanon for the funeral of Syed Hassan Nasrallah, which Rami attended with me. And then we went down to the border of Lebanon and occupied Palestine to a village called Kfar Kila and reported on the massive devastation there. I also reported myself without Rami from Cyprus on the massive influx of Israelis. I think I went there twice this year, actually. And the second time that I went there, I was interrogated on my way out of Cyprus at the Larnaca airport by the criminal division of the Larnaca police because I had gone by a Jewish community center in Larnaca, and while doing some reporting, I was on a public street, and they apparently the officials there reported my presence to the Larnaca police, and they were waiting for me when I tried to leave the country. I ended up having to miss my flight because of the interrogation, and they refused to reimburse me for the cost of a new flight. I also reported from Jordan. In October, I tried to enter occupied Palestine. I was stopped by the Israelis. It was my fifth time trying to enter the country. And they told me the reason they weren't going to let me in was because I criticize Israel wherever I go. So apparently that made me a security threat, or so they said. And then when I went back into Jordan and started reporting there, I tried to do a report about 100 meters from the Israeli embassy in Amman, and I was quickly swarmed by military personnel, and they threw me in a jail cell for a day, and claiming that I was in a closed military zone, even though there was no sign indicating that photography was forbidden where I was standing on this public street. So I also think I did a report from Cuba at the very beginning of the year. And I plan to do more reporting from the Caribbean region. And in fact, before I get into what we're going to be doing in the months ahead, Rami, why don't you give us you've been, doing even more traveling than I've been doing, reporting on the ground from one end of the globe to the other in 2025.
So I've been gradually escalating my amount of content that I've been publishing. But earlier this year, or maybe it was late 2024, I did a report in Georgia on the Georgian elections that were happening there. It turns out that the Georgia cannot handle its elections on its own. It requires the special approval from EU, from Kaya Kallas and all these clowns to decide whether some election is legitimate or not. And it seems like the only condition for an election to be legitimate is if the EU parents agree with the result of the elections, right? So if they're happy that their candidate won, then the election is legitimate. And that wasn't the case in Georgia. Since Georgian Dream won, I interviewed former Georgian Dream members, union workers who told me about the state of Georgia right now and the hostility of EU in meddling into internal affairs there. And then I joined you in Lebanon, the funeral of Sayyid Hassan Kfarkila. Dimitri, we were the first foreign is a big word since I'm half Lebanese, but we were the first foreign journalists to visit Kfarkila, along with Laith and Hadim. That was interesting. We also, I think we had the most viewed footage of the funeral of Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah, where we filmed these Zionist fighter jets that threatened to bomb us while documenting the funeral. In Romania, we documented the another EU fraud, where they decided to not recognize the election results in Romania, where Călin Georgescu won the first round, and then found some way to kick him out and ban him from running in the elections with some very shady accusations. That report was pretty cool. A lot of Romanians were grateful for our report, since pretty much no one spoke about the Călin Georgescu, or at least gave them like an honest coverage of our opinion on these elections. In Serbia, we documented the NATO bombing of Yugoslavia. I learned so much there of the NATO weapons that were used, nuclear-enriched bullets that basically sparked like a cancer epidemic among NATO soldiers and civilians in former Yugoslavia as well. In France, we published a report. This is something we forgot to talk about, Dimitri. It's the report where I infiltrated kind of this weapons expo, where we recorded Israeli companies leaking their customers, and our research really went super deep, where we discovered that the CIA, FBI, and Mossad are pretty much former heads of these organizations are bankrolling these Israeli cybersecurity and surveillance companies. And then earlier this week, I published a report on my trip to Xinjiang. Xinjiang was an amazing place that I was able to visit. I read some of the comments. People were telling me that I didn't interview anyone in Xinjiang. There's another report I'll be publishing later this week where you'll see interviews with locals there. So people shouldn't jump the gun when criticizing. And then I published a report in Panama documenting the 36th year anniversary of the U.S. invasion of Panama, and I met some amazing comrades there. And now I'm currently in Colombia for two reasons. The main reason is that I want to go to Venezuela, and I'm applying for a visa, and it's super difficult. As a Canadian, Canadians, we've ruined our government has ruined our reputation as people. Venezuela has the right to feel wary of us due to the hostility of our governments and how we just puppet around what the United States want us to do. But I'm applying for a visa to go to Venezuela so that we can document how the people are reacting to Western threats towards Venezuela. But I was able to, I'm working out some contacts, and while I'm here in Colombia, patiently waiting for my visa, I'm thinking of publishing a report on the 2016 peace process between the guerrillas and the Colombian state. So hopefully I will publish a report on that. I'm working out some contacts to meet some interesting people, and hopefully that's going to work out. And then if we get to Venezuela, I'll publish a report in Venezuela. And if that doesn't work out, I have an insane plan. I'm going to walk from Havana to Santiago de Cuba, to Fidel Castro's grave. Hopefully the Cuban people are going to notice me, and then I'll be able to meet the president of Cuba and maybe get to interview him. But this is like all working out in my head. Maybe it'll not work in reality. And then I'm hoping this year in 2026 to go visit China again. I mean, it was the most magical place in the world. I want to spend a lot more time in Xinjiang. There's some good comments about my report. They're telling me to go to Kashgar, go to other places. I'll go everywhere in Xinjiang and keep showing what I've been seeing. There's also Sudan. That is, I think, super important for us to go to. Gaza, Lebanon. I don't know how likely I'll go to Palestine if they'll let me in, but I think it's also important to try. And then Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso. This is like, I got all the vaccines, all the shots, the yellow fever, the hepatitis B, whatever. It's all required to go to Burkina Faso. Now that I got these shots, I can go there. And then if Russia is kind enough to let me in, since I had troubles last time trying to get into Russia, I'm really hoping in 2026 to do that. And then Yemen, we have to go to Yemen. There's been some updates lately where I believe the UAE has, under the pressure of Saudi Arabia, retreated from some part of Yemen. And then, yes, for the people talking about salsa, actually I'm in Cali, which is the salsa capital of Colombia right now, and there's a salsa festival going on. I'm trying to learn, but if I being a Palestinian in Canada, sometimes I doubt about my identity, and being here in Colombia, I realized that deep down I'm a gringo, since I can't move my body the way these Colombians do, and I can't dance, sadly.
You walking across Cuba, that reminds me of the Salt March by the great Mahatma Gandhi. I can imagine by the time you get to Fidel's grave, there are like thousands of Cubanos falling. That'd be quite a sight. And anyways, Ramplense, a member of our audience, reminded me I left something out of my list of places we did on the ground reporting this year. I was, of course, in Iran in May, a few weeks before Israel and the United States launched its criminal war of aggression. I was there for the Sobe Media Festival. And I've been invited to go back to Iran for the Sobe Media Festival and have accepted the invitation. That'll be happening in the spring. I'll be coming to Colombia, where I'll join up with Rami later this month, assuming he hasn't been completely preoccupied by his salsa lessons. And then we're going to go to Venezuela, or at least I expect to be able to get in, but Rami may have an issue because of visa requirements. But hopefully we'll be able to get in there, the both of us, and do some reporting from the Maracaibo region, which is sort of the heart of the oil industry in Venezuela. If we can ever find a way to get into Yemen in the coming year, we've made multiple attempts to get in, and I came close. I got a visa from the government of Ansar Allah, but I needed to get another visa from the Saudi-backed regime, and wasn't able to do that in order to actually purchase a plane ticket into Yemen. So I don't know if we're going to be able to resolve that logistical problem, but we're certainly going to try. And of course, we'll be reporting from the Eastern Mediterranean in the coming year, assuming humanity isn't wiped off the map before we have an opportunity to go back to the region. I shouldn't laugh, but what can you do nowadays? So one of our audience members did ask us to address the situation in the south of Yemen and the conflict between Saudi Arabia and the UAE. I must confess that I'm just catching up on that news, but it does appear that the Saudis struck a port that's in an area controlled by the UAE-backed entity in southern Yemen. And apparently the intention there was to destroy an arms shipment being delivered to a separatist entity or movement in that part of the country. The Saudis apparently regard that entity as a threat to their own security. And the Emiratis have now announced that they're going to withdraw their forces from this part of the country. So quite striking that the UAE and the Saudi Arabia, which are normally closely allied on security matters, to the detriment of the people in the region, clearly there is a serious conflict here between them, and it looks like the UAE is backing down. What is not clear to me, and I'm going to have to look into this more closely, is why the Saudis regard this UAE-backed constituency in Yemen as a threat to their own security. I mean, I don't know if you have any idea about that, Rami, but I thought that the Saudis were implacably hostile to Ansar Allah and that they would support the enemy of my enemy is my friend, that they would support any forces within Yemen who are hostile to Ansar Allah. But apparently that's not the case. They aren't hostile, or the Saudis aren't prepared to align themselves with all of the groups that are hostile to Ansar Allah. But why that's the case is unclear to me. Rami, any thoughts about that?
Well, there's my immediate thought over here is that the Red Sea is definitely an important strategic area that both Saudi Arabia and the UAE are trying to take control over. That's why we've been seeing a lot of meddling in Somalia, all of Somalia, including that Somaliland part. And there's been like this in the northern part of Egypt. There was this piece of land that the United Arab Emirates was able to like lease over a huge period of time, which is essentially Egypt sold land to the United Arab Emirates. So I could be that in some way, I mean, the Saudis and the Emiratis see Yemen as a independent nation that is currently influenced by Iran, according to them, and they're trying to fight for that piece of the pie. But in one sense, Saudi Arabia wants to have hegemony over the region with the increasing threat of the United Arab Emirates that is able to put up a challenge to Saudi Arabia for these claims. So I think that's, I rember reading, I was reading about this this morning, and I was thinking about, well, there's been these lots of concessions in normalizing ties with Israel with the possibility of getting in exchange these fighter jets. So in some way, could we see a Cold War kind of escalate between Saudi Arabia and the UAE? We've seen it in the past. We've seen what Saudi Arabia was able to do to Qatar back in 2016. I'm not quite sure of the year there, where they put this entire blockade over Qatar. UAE, it's going to be much harder to put up such threats against the UAE, since UAE has stronger pull in the region. The entire world is pretty much invested there. Their economy is a lot more diversified. So I'm assuming this is the intention here, is there's control of the Red Sea. The Saudis want to stay the hegemon in that region beyond what Israel already has, right? Maybe the second hegemon. And the United Arab Emirates is clearly challenging the Saudis for that role.
Right. Well, whatever the reality may be, I imagine that Ansar Allah is welcoming warmly the tensions between Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, and the Saudis' evident hostility towards a separatist movement in the south and or east of the country. So, Rami, I know your time was limited today. Do we have time for a few questions?
We do. There's 2 questions I already saved. Let me put that little banner here. Post your questions in the chat. We will be answering them. Make sure it's visible with like lots of question marks, since it's a bit hard sometimes to notice these questions as the feed goes on. One question someone asked earlier is Rami selling narcotics? How can you afford to globetrot the world the way you have been lately? Actually, I've been traveling the world almost for the last 3 years, and that's after the first year of the pandemic. Dimitri and I, we've been friends for almost a decade now, but before that, I was just traveling on my own solo, not for the purpose of journalism. And it turns out that it's much cheaper to travel the world and document it, and it's much more rewarding and cheaper than it is to live in Canada. I was paying in 2020 $1,600 a month for a tiny shoebox studio in Montreal. Right now, me and my friend in Cali, we're sharing like a 3-bedroom apartment for like $30 Canadian a day. So I'm not selling narcotics. I have my own source of income. So I'm not funded by anyone. Occasionally, Dimitri will fund a bit of, like, if I'm doing like a report and I'm somewhere for 2-3 days, there's going to be like a small compensation just for the added costs. But I'm entirely self-funded and not selling narcotics or anything of this sort. And I have my day job that is keeping me alive.
Yeah, just neither Rami nor I make money from this journalism, although we do accept donations. And by the way, someone in the chat I saw 10 minutes ago indicated they wanted to contribute, and someone else I think just did that. And thank you very much for your generosity, you can do that. We have a Patreon, and you look in the description to any of our videos in the video sections of our YouTube channel. You can find you know, the link necessary to contribute. And you know, our goal, we would be happy if we were just breaking even on our journalism. I would be happy if, you know, we just covered the expenses of journalism. But we're not quite there yet. So we do welcome, you know, your donations if you are in a position to donate, and that would enable us, you know, the more donations we get, the more we're able to pay Rami for his work, and he's been, you know, ramping up his contributions to Reason to Resist in recent weeks. And as you said, as he mentioned, he's hoping to do a lot more reporting for us in 2026, which we would love. So you know, the more you donate, the more we're able to compensate Rami for his work. So you said there was a second question, Rami, that you thought you saw in the chat.
Yes, the second one. Oh, the second one, I forgot to pin it, I think. Okay, well, there's one person who says, amazing videos from China, Rami. Thank you. There's going to be a second video that I'll be publishing this week where I'll be documenting, I'll be showing street culture in Xinjiang. So I met these like 16, 17-year-old kids skateboarding in front of the headquarters of the Communist Party. The most insane tricks you could ever see on a skateboard. And I ended up chatting with them. They were super cool. Then they brought me to some like graffiti studio in Xinjiang. And then I met like this graffiti kingpin of Xinjiang, and he taught me about oh, there's some good questions here. He taught me about the street culture in Xinjiang, and it ended up that these guys were also doing these big graffiti murals for Palestine. So hopefully I'll be publishing this week. And I'll be back in China to publish some more stuff there. Then someone posted, is Saudi Arabia and the UAE worried about impending war with Iran, therefore trying to have pathway open for oil exports?
That's a good question. I hadn't thought about that. So I think the suggestion here from Adis is that maybe the Saudis are trying to secure a means of exporting oil by land across Yemen. So rather than having to rely exclusively on the Persian Gulf and the Red Sea, that certainly is a possibility. That may well have something to do with the tensions with the UAE. Maybe the Saudis want to have exclusive control over that part of Yemen for that reason. But I don't know. I myself have to investigate this more before I can come to a more reliable understanding of what Saudi Arabia is up to in this part of the country by attacking, effectively forcing UAE to withdraw from the country by military force. Now, there was another question about how do you follow Rami? Rami?
Well, we have a French YouTube channel that it's just hard to like travel and be focused on work here. So I'll be publishing a second YouTube channel that's gonna be in French, and I'll create a Twitter account soon.
Right. So this is the sister channel or the brother channel, whatever you want to call it, of Reason to Resist. It's called Radio Resistance. Mm-hmm. We've been planning the launch of this channel for some time, and Rami has done some. He's got a fantastic interview with a heavily censored French comedian by the name of Dieudonné. That interview was actually done a couple of months ago. It's ready to be published, but we've been delayed. So Rami, we should try to get that off the ground.
Yeah.
2026.
It's just the holidays right now, and right now my friend is waiting for me to go out. I learned how to do motorcycle, by the way, here in Cali, which is a terrible idea. Anyway, sorry. Just random thought. And then there's a question here, but it's in Greek, Dimitri, so maybe you can...
Η Κολόμπια βγάζει πολύ ωραίους κουραμπιέδες να ξέρεις. So apparently Colombians make really good cookies.
Okay, well, I'll try one. I mean, I saw one yesterday at the store, but I was like, I really needed a big meal. I saw that cookie and I debated whether I should buy it. But okay, I'll try it. Good. Thank you for letting us know.
Thank you for the advice. And there was a question about Haiti. Yes, there was a suggestion we cover Haiti. That is absolutely an excellent idea and something we should endeavor to do in 2026. Now, someone's asking if this is sponsored by Russia Today. Is that by this? Do you mean our YouTube channel? In any case, I'm not sure what you mean by this, but I can assure you that we are not sponsored by anybody. We do not take and have not taken any contributions from any government or any government-owned entity. Russia Today is owned by the Russian Federation. I appear on Russia Today fairly frequently. I get invited to talk about all sorts of subjects. I've probably been on dozens of times. They've never paid me a dime for my appearances. They've never offered me compensation. I've never asked for any compensation. We rely entirely on two sources of revenue to pay our expenses. The one is monetization. We really would prefer not to be monetized and have, to subject our audience members to advertisements, but that's what enables us to operate this channel. And then, from time to time, people make generous donations, and that is have been significant assistance too. But we have absolutely no connection to any government or government-owned agency or corporation, or there's no, sugar daddy behind us or sugar mama providing large capital to fund this. It's just, people making small donations and monetization.
And I think it's also important to mention that I was denied entry into Russia. Okay, so maybe they could let me start getting into the country before being sponsored by Russia Today, right? So
yeah, Rami made the unfortunate mistake. It wasn't actually he had planned his trip before this happened, but just I think a few days before you went, there was a major terrorist attack in Russia. Yeah. And so he fell under suspicion because apparently the attackers or alleged attackers came more or less from the part of the world that Rami's family comes from. And so I think that was...
And because I spent a hefty amount of time in Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, where these attackers came from. And when they took my phone, and then they looked into it for a few times. But anyways, all that to say that we do not work for Russia. And but I would love to go visit. And I'm trying very hard to go visit.
And if anybody from the Russian government is listening, please help Rami to get a visa so he can get into Russia. He's been dying to go there.
I don't know how many times I cried, Dimitri, for that. I've never cried for anything and anyone in my entire life.
Yeah, he was very upset. Okay, so I think we'll wrap it up there, Rami. Let us say to all of you out there, we wish you a peaceful and prosperous 2026, an outstanding New Year's Eve. And although a lot of the time that we do our reporting, we're compelled, if we feel obliged to share with you grim news, and certainly we've had to do that again today. I can tell you, and I say this with all sincerity, I actually think that the resistance is winning, and it's a long battle we're in, and ultimately what will emerge from it, with the tremendous sacrifices that so many people of goodwill have made and continue to make, will be a much better world, a peaceful and a prosperous world. I do believe we will see that in my lifetime. Maybe I'm unduly optimistic, but I just think that's based on a cold, hard assessment of the facts. So for me personally, I wish you all health, happiness, and prosperity for the coming year. Rami, you want to close it out with a few words?
Yes, so I think it's going to be an exciting year in 2026. The world is awake. I mean, the world was never asleep. We were actually in the West asleep, but the world is fighting back. American hegemony is coming to an end. We're going to see justice and peace for the entire world. And there's so many inspiring movements happening across the world. And the people that I've met in Panama are reminding me this. The people in Colombia, there's people fighting every fucking day to make sure that American imperialism comes to an end. I think, Dimitri, we were often optimistic, but we don't have a choice to when we see how people are fighting every day. We need to follow up their call. We need to amplify their voices and make sure that momentum keeps growing on our side, so that we could live in a world where there's no more wars, where we do not measure an economy by its ability to manufacture and export weapons that are then being used to kill people that look like us, so or anyone at all, right? So I truly believe, I mean, we listened to these speeches of Abu Ubaidah, the Abu Ubaidah as an entity, the continuity of the current spokesperson and the one before. You know, there will never be peace without justice. So our victory is near in Palestine, in across the global south, in Panama, in Colombia, in Venezuela, in China, all over the world.
And as our friend Mineski said in the chat, vive la résistance. Peace out, everybody.